Hey, this is Warren Redlick. I'm here with Jesse and Mayur, and we're going to talk about plant-based meat, and we're going to talk about how to value Tesla stock. We're going to talk about plant-based meat first. Plant-based meat is something when people say they're looking for the next Tesla, I always say Tesla is the next Tesla, but if there is another next Tesla, I think it could be plant-based meat or lab-based meat. We're going to go through that, and then later in the video, we're going to talk about how to value Tesla stock. Not so much short-term Tesla stock valuation, but where we think Tesla's going on long term. I'm going to talk about how I view it long term. We'll see how Jesse and Mayur look at it, whether short term or long term. Are you ready? Let's go. Who wants to go first? Would you please explain to my audience what plant-based meat is and why it matters?
Well, I mean, it's basically today. I would say, it's the equivalent of traditional animal meat, right? That they're trying to mimic the flavor, the taste, but hoping to have a healthier product that's more sustainable for the planet, basically. And I think the goal when it comes to Beyond Meat, anyways, is it's threefold, right? That reaching price parity, having a taste that's as similar as possible, and kind of like trying to plug the whole health argument too. So in that way, hoping to get as much people interested as possible, and trying to actually reach that $1.4 trillion meat industry, getting a percentage of that huge slice, basically.
I want to clarify for people when we talk about plant-based meat, we're not talking about veggie burgers.
No.
We're not talking about taking vegetables and putting them in a shape that looks like meat. We're talking about actually altering the molecules of the plants at a cellular level to make them more like meat molecules, to make them effectively equivalent to meat molecules. And there's a bunch of advantages. I'm going to take my own spin on this. The main thing is that animal-based agriculture takes up a lot of land, uses a lot of water, and uses a lot of energy, and it's not good for the planet. Whether you like killing animals or you're concerned about killing animals or not, you can take a step away from that question and just say, well, wouldn't we like it if meat could be produced in a more environmentally friendly and efficient way at lower cost and more healthy? Because one of the great examples, and this is both true for lab-based meat, which is where they take cloned animal cells and they grow meat from cloned animal cells. One of the great things about both of these is they don't involve blood, they don't involve urine, they don't involve feces, they don't involve, generally speaking, antibiotics. There's a lot of, and there's no bugs that get in the system. You know, there's so many things that can go wrong with animal-based meat that plant-based meat and lab-based meat get around in different ways. So maybe, I don't know which one of you wants to distinguish. Can you tell us a little bit about lab? I know we're mostly going to talk about plant-based meat, but what is lab-based meat? What is plant-based meat? And what is your perspective? Let me ask Mayur, how do they differ from animal meat?
Yeah, so great questions. These are essentially different ways to get to the same end goal, right? I think, whether you're into plant-based meat or not, or if you're more into lab-cultured meat or not, the idea is to get away from the existing system. I think everybody agrees that the current system is broken. We raise billions and billions of livestock, and it takes up a significant amount of land and resources, water and feed, vegetable feed in many cases, to raise the livestock that we need, which then gets slaughtered and then distributed in factory farms and throughout the world. And depending on your approach or angle to this, from an environmental standpoint, it does not make sense at all. So there's a study that was done, and I know there's always, studies on everything, and it's always disputed, but there is a study out there that does look at the greenhouse gas emissions of the meat industry. And if you add up the top 5 global meat and dairy producers, right? This is basically JBS, which is the behemoth in the room. They're the world's largest beef producer. It's a Brazilian company. And, if you add up all 5 of the top, basically the top 5 global meat and dairy producers of the world, the total amount of greenhouse gas emissions that come from this activity is equivalent to the entire greenhouse gas emissions of ExxonMobil. So if you're in it to talk about greenhouse gas emissions, if you're in it to talk about environmental destruction, we can't just talk about electric cars alone, right? I think this is a number 2, gorilla in the room. The biggest gorilla is still the fossil fuels industry, but the second biggest, which you can't ignore, is the meat industry. And there's many people that kind of disagree with this because there are ways to sort of make meat in a more sustainable, organic way. There are better and more sustainable methods of raising livestock, which is all fine and good. But the problem with all these approaches is that none of them have scaled. And whoever does do this, they have to sell this meat at an extremely high, substantial premium, in terms of price. So it's simply not affordable for the masses. What Ethan Brown has laid out in terms of his vision is to
Sorry, Ethan Brown is the CEO of Beyond Meat.
exactly the CEO of Beyond Meat. He's laid out a vision that we need to get away from this current system and instead reduce our global greenhouse gas emissions by effectively 80% or more, reduce our reliance on land by 90%, and reduce the amount of water consumption by 99%. And we can do this through plants. Ultimately, what is meat, right? That's the bigger philosophical question. What is meat fundamentally? Meat is, if you want to define it, it's basically an assembly of lipids, right? Basically fats, amino acids, protein, and water. And it's assembled in a specific way, chemically speaking. So if you were to ask a chemist of what anything is, they would tell you what the chemical composition of that is. And meat is no different. So what Beyond Meat has envisioned, and as well as Impossible as well, as well as other plant-based meat companies, they say that, well, if the end goal is to create a piece of meat, why does it matter where that meat comes from, right? Why do consumers want their meat to come from a cow? If you can mimic the taste and texture and sell at the same price of a piece of meat that comes from plants, why wouldn't it be accepted by society if it means significant reductions in greenhouse gas emissions, reduced deforestation in the Amazon, and less just general resources consumed? We can feed, instead of feeding livestock all of these grains that are fed to them, we can feed people that same, those same grains.
Yeah.
Right. So
this is,
yeah, I just want to stress to people again, I just make sure people get this. We're not talking about Morningstar Farms veggie burgers. You can go to Burger King, probably any Burger King in the United States, and order an Impossible Whopper, which has a burger from Impossible Foods. And I have been eating Burger King since I worked at Burger King, if not before, when I was, more than 30, actually 40 years ago. And I think the Impossible Whopper tastes just as good as a regular Whopper. You can go to Beyond, a lot of places you can get a Beyond Burger. BurgerFi here in South Florida has Beyond Burger. When I go to these places, that is what I order. Even if it costs $1 more, that's what I order. And sometimes it doesn't cost more. And then you can buy, Beyond has I don't know if Impossible has as many. Beyond has a wide variety of products. I recently bought a Beyond breakfast sausage. Especially, when you think about pricing, like the cost of bacon's gone through the roof. So I think Beyond breakfast sausage might be getting competitive with bacon in terms of pricing. And I do eat it, and I think it's good. Still like bacon a little better, but I think that as far as sausage goes, I think it tastes like sausage. So if you're like, I encounter these purists who are like, well, it's not real meat, or they'll say, I don't want processed food. And there's this great point that Ethan Brown makes that animals are processing food, right? They're taking grains or whatever they eat. They're drinking water. They're taking antibiotics. There's this process by which an animal takes inputs, grains and water and antibiotics and whatever else, and eats it, and it goes through its system, and it converts that into meat on its body. And what Beyond Meat and Impossible Foods are doing is they're creating meat from plants with a different process. And their process is cleaner and it's more efficient. And ultimately, I think the challenge, which I don't think they're there yet, is to get it to where it's not only the same price, but it really should be, if it uses less water, if it uses less energy, and it uses less land, ultimately it should be lower cost than animal-based meat. So what's the future? And let's just talk about this for a second. Let's change gears. Beyond Meat, and full disclosure, I'm an investor in Beyond Meat. I think you guys are both investors in Beyond Meat. Impossible Foods, as far as I know, is still privately held, so it's not possible to buy it on public markets. But Beyond Meat just had their quarterly report. It didn't go well. I don't think it was that bad, but it didn't go as well as people hoped. Can you talk about where Beyond Meat is now and where you see it heading in the next year, 2 years, 5 years? And I'll turn it to Jesse first.
Well, right now it's the last couple of years, especially since the pandemic started. I mean, in the beginning, the first half year, it went really well. People started stockpiling and they bought a lot of Beyond product. But after that, it's been basically a huge plummet. And I don't think we've actually had a really good quarter. We did actually last year in Q2 in the summer, because it's barbecue season, right? They had actually their best quarter then, around 140 million. And they are expecting to have the greatest quarter again now in the Q2 in grilling season. But when it comes to trying to achieve economy of scale, they're burning cash like crazy at the moment. And the margins are just getting worse and worse. And the reason now, according to the latest earnings call, is one of the biggest reasons, besides what's happening with the macroeconomics, which is an issue for everyone, right, is that they just came out a couple of months ago with a new product, the plant-based jerky, which they launched with PepsiCo, the Planet partnership. And they're really putting all the effort into that to really get that to ramp up, using their obviously large distribution point. So to be able to reach that, they're putting in a lot of effort, a lot of cash to actually ramp it up. And it hasn't been that very efficient, as they said on the call. I think they've actually been using different facilities for the same product, which has been really driving into the margin. The margins was actually the lowest ever, about 0.2%, whilst their goal is actually to get back to around 20-30% in the long term. But right now, they're having a lot of difficulty. But I think with the plant-based jerky, there's a lot of upside on that product itself, because they're now around 56,000 locations in the US. And in the end of May, they're actually supposed to be at 80,000. And even the 56,000, there are actually more retails now, more stores than with any other product. So my hope is that obviously we want the burger to be the thing that signifies them. But I think if people pick up these jerkies and it's really popular, and already now it's basically they're the category leader when it comes to plant-based jerky already after 2 months. So they are the category at the moment. So I'm hoping that when people go into any small store or CVC and actually sees these jerkies to try them out, and it seems to right now that people really love them, they might think, Beyond Meat, what is this? Let's try some other products. So that's my hope anyways.
Okay, so let me just address one of the key features I see in the short term, as in the next few years, for Beyond Meat Impossible Foods. Ground beef is a relatively inexpensive meat. So trying to compete with ground beef, which is where they started, is a bigger challenge. And jerky, I like jerky. I don't know how many people eat jerky. I'm kind of a fan of jerky. And I even make my own jerky sometimes. Not recently, but I've made my own jerky. You buy a thinly sliced something like top round eye or something like that, and you cut it up and you marinate it. You put it in a smoker for hours and you end up with jerky. Jerky's expensive. So I see, like, if plant-based meat companies and lab-based meat companies target the expensive end of the market, they're more likely to be price competitive than if you go for ground chuck, which
they are already, actually. I think they are already at price parity when it comes to jerky.
Right,
overall.
right. And by the way, I looked before we started because I was watching your previous video, and I saw that jerky's available in Target and Walmart, which are two of the biggest retail chains in America. Yeah. So they really have achieved, broad acceptance if you can buy it in Target and Walmart. And next time I'm in Target or Walmart, I'm going to buy myself some plant-based, Beyond Meat jerky, because I want to try it. But I want to take a different take for a second. This is in my head. I don't want to forget this. When I first became aware of Beyond Meat, it was the Beyond Burger. And I question, I'm going to ask Mayur to answer this first. I question whether the strategy of proliferating products is the right strategy. To me, the right strategy is get one product down, get really good at it, get your costs down so that you can achieve price parity that way. Now, maybe ground beef was the wrong product to start with, or burgers was the wrong product to start with, but it seems like they've gotten into this, let's make a chicken tender, let's make a this product, let's make a that product, and they've got a, like, I didn't even know about the jerky. I bought the breakfast sausage. I wasn't even aware they had a jerky product until I watched your video. The attempt to do a wide variety of products cuts into the mission of, if you're trying to nail down, let's get this down right, and let's produce it in high volume at low cost, it seems like this proliferation of products is taking away from the effort to mass produce, scale, and get your costs down. So, Mayur, what's your take on whether they're doing that right or wrong?
So I think the reason why they're doing this is because, well, specifically the jerky, I kind of agree with the chicken product. I think that was a little bit of a distraction for the company. I think they should focus on beef. But the reason why they got into jerky, which again is the reason why their margins are so bad this quarter, is because jerky is their very first product that will get into significantly more, what the industry acronym TDPs, which is total distribution points, right? Because there's more, small convenience stores than there are Walmarts and Targets. If you add up like every CVS and Walgreens and Rite Aid and every gas station across America and every small convenience store, that has significantly more impressions in front of people than Walmart and Target do. So you're in so many more locations, with this jerky product, and it's shelf stable too, as opposed to the beef, which has a shelf life, a pretty limited shelf life, just like regular meat, right? So that's one of the major reasons why. And plus, there's also almost no competition within the plant-based jerky market. There's already some other jerkies out there, but they came in and they're basically resoundingly the best out there, as far as the reviews are concerned. So jerky is an interesting avenue, and that's still within their sort of forte, which is attacking the beef industry, right? Since jerky is a beef product fundamentally. So the jerky and by the way, the jerky, if you didn't know, is the result of a partnership between Beyond Meat and Pepsi. So Beyond Meat and Pepsi have collaborated. They've created an entity called the Planet Partnership, and it's essentially a joint venture between these two companies.
Okay.
So they both own equity in Planet Partnership, and so Beyond Meat is the R&D sort of brains behind the product, and Pepsi is the distribution master of the product. So Pepsi is going to get this into significantly more stores than Beyond Meat was able to from their existing product lineup. And this is just the first product too.
Can I add one thing there?
Yeah, sure.
I do find it interesting also that on the Beyond, this is their first product, right? On the product now, you can't almost see that PepsiCo is part of it. You have to look in the backside and close to the ingredients. It's like a small symbol there, but they're really focusing on Beyond Meat here. So I get the impression, PepsiCo is the second largest food company out there in the world. I think it's worth like $250 billion, right? So for them to make such a collaboration must, in my opinion, mean that they really believe in what Beyond Meat is doing and what they're capable of. So sorry for stopping you there.
No, I was going to ask you what your thoughts are, Jesse, on the challenge of getting one product down right versus proliferating products. What's your thoughts on that, Jesse?
Well, I kind of agree with you to some extent there for when it comes to, because you shouldn't compare it with Tesla. Obviously, they're totally different companies, they're totally different product, but trying to solve some similar solutions though, or issues. But my idea was also kind of like Tesla, like focus on one product, make it as good as possible, make it affordable, and then scale it. But I kind of wonder sometimes also that, again, comparing apples with pears, I'm feeling that to some extent, the food system is the whole way, the way people buy food, it's way more complicated. And I think they need to really try to reach different kinds of people out there. And also when it comes to the chicken thing, I'm not 100% sure I agree there that could be a negative thing, considering that most people in the US, and I think in the Western hemisphere anyways, they actually eat way more chicken than beef. So I think because the whole belief that chicken is actually better for you than red meat, whether that would be true or not, it's what people believe, right? So if you have a product that appeals to them, and right now, I think Impossible has some pretty good products. I haven't tried them yet, but besides Beyond Meat and Impossible, I don't think there's anyone there that's close to those kind of chicken products. So, yeah, maybe I left the.
No, but I mean, to me, it's not about whether there's a market for chicken or not. There obviously is a huge market for chicken, and maybe they should have picked chicken over burger. I don't know. But, get one product right, nail it, deliver that product at at a competitive price, and deliver that in volume. And once you get that down, then, but I think what happened is they have, like, I don't know, 200 food scientists at their, facility in Manhattan Beach, California. And it's like, well, we got all these scientists, and we can't just focus on one product with 200 scientists. So let's have these guys. We got to have these guys work on something. So let's have them work on chicken, and let's have them work on breakfast sausage, and let's have them work on jerky.
Yeah.
And I just worry that, the goal, and I think, Mayur, last time you and I talked, they were opening plants in Europe and maybe in Asia.
Yeah.
And the idea was, if they get the product close to the consumer, if they produce in volume in each place, if they improve their manufacturing methods and share their learnings, I hate that phrase, that they can get closer to cost parity, pricing parity with the other products. And it seems like they haven't gone that way. I can't tell. I mean, have they lowered costs at all? Have they gotten closer to price parity? Because costs of other things have gone up.
Yeah, it's been slower. It's been slower than we would like. So the easiest way to understand their cost structure in terms of is basically their cost of goods sold per pound, right? And that has not come down as quickly as one would like. And I think there's many reasons for that. It's because, the cost of goods sold line on the income statement still confounds some things, such as, new, factory ramp up or new product ramp up. So, it's hard to really nail down what their cost is on their ground beef product. But, I think I agree with you in general that I think they should focus on one product and get it super right and get it very cheap and expensive, as well as improving the taste and texture. So that's still the goal of the company. So remember, Ethan Brown set out an agenda, a timetable, that by 2024, they expect to hit price parity with ground beef. So that's been the original goal from the beginning. So within 5 years, so he basically gave that guidance, I think, in 2019, that in 5 years' time, they will hit price parity. So that gives us up until 2024. And he actually reiterated that on the call just this past week. That is still in line,
Right, because I appreciate Jesse's point about chicken being a big market, but right now I think Beyond probably has like 1% of the ground beef market, or less.
So
if you can, 10x or 100x, sounds like there's room to 10x or more their production of ground beef and still have a market for it if they can get the price down.
Yeah.
So,
and by the way, there's price inflation with beef too.
Oh yes, yeah, I've seen it. Yeah.
So maybe we could hit price parity quicker than that, because the cost of, so here's one thing, the cost of Beyond Meat is not going up, right? It's not going up at all. It's, if anything, it's been steady for the last several years that I've been buying Beyond Beef at my local store.
Yeah.
And it sometimes goes on sale. So it's usually on average, it fluctuates between $7 a pound and $9 a pound. And it hasn't changed for years. Whereas ground beef has gone up in price over time.
Yeah, and I bought these breakfast sausages, and like you said, there was like a buy two get one free deal, and I was probably just going to buy one pack, and I ended up buying 3 packs because it was buy two get one free, and so they're sitting in my freezer, and So I just want to, and I want to say, like, again, I want to stress, I've eaten Beyond products, I've eaten Impossible products. I personally think they taste just as good, if not better than, like, the burgers taste just as good, if not better than burgers. The breakfast sausage tastes just as good, if not better than sausage. I'm waiting for bacon. I actually think, let me ask you both about this. I have this thesis that if you're going to do another product, pick something that's really high end sashimi grade fish. Like, do a sashimi grade tuna or salmon, right? Like, not maguro. I don't know if you guys eat sushi at all, but maguro is sort of the standard.
Avocado.
No, maguro. No, I'm not talking about avocado. That's different.
I'm joking.
No, but maguro is the sort of the base level tuna that people see a lot. But there's a lot of higher grades of tuna that can be very expensive. There's toro, there's otoro, and if plant-based meat, and I'm not saying this is a Beyond Meat thing, it might be another plant-based company. If a plant-based company could come up with a sashimi grade, a really high end Tsukiji Fish Market sashimi grade Otoro, which might go for $50 a pound, right? That could be a great place to get price competitive. Have you heard of anybody trying to do sashimi or a sushi like grade fish in the plant-based space?
I think there has been a foray into plant-based fish, but not anything that would, I think, be truly disruptive just yet.
And of course, the volume of high grade sushi is low. That's the really high end sushi products are not high volume, so that might be a challenge there.
Yeah.
There is a company actually that I made a video on a little over a year ago that was supposed to IPO soon, and they gotten quite a lot, they raised quite a lot of money, but I forgot what its name now. And they're basically using some form of algae, right, to really mimic the flavor of fish. And they do have a lot of shrimps too. That's apparently very popular.
Yeah,
So,
if you could do large shrimp, if you could do jumbo shrimp, that's also a high end, high cost product. It seems to me that might be something you could pull off. But anyway, let's go back to Beyond for a second. So I thought when I listened to your video, when I watched your video, it sounded like they're heading for a cash crunch. That they had something like negative $200 million in free cash flow, and they're down to about $550 million in cash on hand,
which is debt.
But if they follow that path for 2 more quarters, they're almost out of money. So did they talk about what the prospects are for their cash situation in the next 3-4 quarters?
Yeah, so they're still confident that they have enough cash runway before they can, before they run out. So there's a number of things that happen in Q1 that they don't believe is going to repeat in Q2 onwards. First is just the fact that they had, the ramp up cost of the Beyond Jerky product, most of which hit in Q1. So remember, so they had a choice to make. Either they delay the launch of the product and focus on making it themselves with full optimization, or they get, ahead of the game and rush to market as fast as possible. But that comes at a cost, which is going through a high cost third party manufacturer.
So what is that? Is it that they produce the meat and then the third party manufacturer turns it into jerky?
Exactly. Yeah. So they right. So they have a factory that in Missouri actually that does all of the mixing, the base ingredients.
Yeah.
But then the protrusion process, which is what they call it, that actually gives the meat its texture, is done at another facility.
Okay.
But for jerky, it's a brand new product which they don't have the facilities for just yet. They basically made a business decision that even if we don't have the facilities to make it just yet, we would rather play full court offense and get this out there as fast as possible. Because remember, this was actually the fastest ramp in company history. So they have the Beyond Jerky now in 55,000 locations now.
Yeah.
Which is by far the fastest ramp up that they've never been this quick. This is all done in 1 quarter too. So they decided, to make a business decision and take a hit on margins so that they can get the product out there as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
So they're guiding for, optimizing that process by Q3 of this year, which should help reduce their costs and increase their gross margins.
Okay.
So they don't think that the burn rate of Q1 is going to continue further.
Yeah.
There's also inventory buildup, again, associated to the jerky product. As they sell down that inventory, that should be positive cash flow from that as well. So that's 2 huge sources of cash that should start coming through beginning in Q2 and then, further in Q3.
Okay, just really quick note, I'm a jerky junkie, so to me there's 2 kinds of jerky. There's jerky where they take actual steak, and it could be plant-based steak if they make a plant-based steak, and they cut it into strips and they marinate it and they smoke it. And then there's, I think it's there's like these like branded, what is it, Jack Links or something like that. There's these other jerkies, which is like they take ground meat and they form it into a shape and they make jerky out of it, which I consider a lower class jerky than the ones that are made from actual steak. I think they're doing what you're saying is they're taking ground beef and they're making jerky out of it, right?
Yeah.
Do they have a steak product?
Not yet.
No.
Okay.
Have you tried the jerky, by the way?
No, I just learned about it today watching your video.
Oh, okay. All right, yeah.
So I will try it. I do eat the lesser jerkies that are like, ground beef formed into shape. I prefer the ones that are like made from actual steak, but they're harder to find. The ones that are made from actual steak are harder to find. It's not that easy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what's the status of Impossible Foods? It's a privately held company. What do we know? Is there anything? Sorry, before we move to Impossible Foods, is there anything else you wanted to say about Beyond Meat? Jesse, did you want to talk about their future or?
I think we're going to talk about McDonald's.
Okay.
That's the behemoth in the room right now.
Tell me about McDonald's.
Yeah.
Sure. Can I share my screen? So this is probably the biggest news for Beyond Meat right now. So they held an event with Fast Company, right? Fast Company is the the media outlet that covers innovation in business, right? So they held a joint event. It was a virtual conference, but it was with CEO Ethan Brown and Morgan Flatley. Morgan Flatley is the chief marketing officer for McDonald's. So I pulled a quote from that. They actually held a joint appearance together. So it was super exciting. They put out what might have ended up being fake news, or at least misleading news, which is that they're officially launching nationwide, which was kind of a stretch. So the stock price skyrocketed intraday, only to come all the way back down again. But there's some really important things to take away from that. So she said specifically, McDonald's brings the ability to deliver the McPlant burger at scale consistently across 40,000 restaurants at an affordable price point so that most of the population can actually try it. This is not a fad. This is a product that's here to stay. It's going to continue to grow, and we want to make sure that we're a part of those trends and continue to capitalize on it. So I thought that was substantial because remember, McDonald's has been running a test run of the McPlant burger, which is co-developed with Beyond Meat. It is a specific burger made only for McDonald's. It's not the same as the traditional Beyond Beef burger that you can get at grocery stores. It's pretty close to that, but I'm pretty sure that they've made a few changes to make it specifically for McDonald's to get the McDonald's taste in it. It's already nationwide in the UK. It's already in many parts of Europe. And it's in a number of test locations here in the US, mostly in Texas.
600 locations.
Yeah, 600 locations here in the US. So it's
about
under a test run.
And about 1,400 in the UK.
Yeah, exactly. So it's at all McDonald's in the UK. It's been a huge success in the UK. I mean, it's gotten really good, positive, media coverage and whatnot. So, but the big question remains is, are they going to proceed with getting to all 40,000 restaurants here in the US and globally? Are they willing to take this global, or are they still kind of playing to niche markets only? Because it's already widely known that they're in the UK, but the big money is obviously here in the US. So the question has always been, are they going to take the next step and launch it to all McDonald's throughout the US? So unfortunately, we didn't get a firm yes on that just yet. But this is very, very encouraging that they are moving forward with discussions on this at this point in time.
And can I add one thing there too, that the McDonald's own CEO, I think it's Kaminsky or something like that. He actually stated also when this were a lot of discussions, what happened, was it fake news? He said that McDonald's will basically let them come out with the Beyond Meat products in the future when people are ready for it. So if that would be in a couple of months or a year or 5 years from now, but they seem very positive of using Beyond Meat's product, which isn't strange considering that the competition, which is Burger King, right? They're already in collaboration with Impossible. So where would they go otherwise if they wouldn't make it in-house? And apparently they don't have that kind of science and technology. Otherwise they wouldn't choose Beyond Meat, right? So that's why I think we just have to be more patient. But I would say it's coming.
So there's potential. There's this deal with McDonald's that would lead to a lot more penetration, a lot more market penetration, a lot more potential revenue for Beyond. And I could say, like I said, I go to Burger. I think every Burger King has Impossible Whopper. Maybe it's not every Burger King, but a lot of them.
It's 6,000 locations.
Right, and I think it sells. I wonder if McDonald's saw that Impossible Whopper was selling and thought they needed to compete with Burger King on that. So, all right, so that's promising, and it's sort of like if that hits, can Beyond ramp production of their meat product to meet the demand that McDonald's would present? And if there's more demand, is that something they can do?
I think so. They've got a number of factories now, mostly in California, that's designed for this. They are also considering, kind of being the R&D and brand leader, and going more towards a CapEx light business model. So having a third-party manufacturer do most of their manufacturing. So it's a business decision that they might be taking. I think they've already talked about making the jerky product, along those lines. So it's sort of like the Apple route, which Apple makes the software, they design all their products, but then they outsource the actual manufacturing to Foxconn.
I don't love that. I don't love that. I mean, I think when we're talking about the next Tesla, what does Tesla do? Tesla vertically integrates. Tesla innovates relentlessly in the manufacturing process, and they get the manufacturing costs down. If you're outsourcing manufacturing to third parties, how are they innovating to get manufacturing costs down? What's their incentive to do so? It seems to me that their focus should be, how can we manufacture this product at lower cost? That was the promise that I felt I got from Ethan Brown.
Yeah, well, I think that the innovation of Tesla is on both ends, right? They've innovated the battery and the product itself and the software, and they've changed the entire landscape of auto manufacturing. That's why Tesla is such a unique case. They've done innovations on both ends. For example, Apple, their innovation is on product design, but the actual manufacturing of the unit itself is not as complicated, right, to actually put it together. So that part of it, since it doesn't require significant levels of innovation in manufacturing, I mean, of course it does involve some, but it's not something that other companies can't handle.
Right, but part of Beyond Meat's goal is to get the cost of the product down, price competitive with regular ground beef, and that does require innovation in the manufacturing process. You're not, I don't think it's just a volume question. I think it's you need to get your manufacturing process more efficient. So, because when you combine the less water, less land, less energy, you should be able to deliver the product at lower cost. So what's the holdup on getting to lower cost? It's probably your manufacturing, unless it's just economies of scale. What are your thoughts on what's holding them from getting to price parity? And do you think
scalability?
Do you think that going to third-party manufacturers interferes with the attempt to get to price parity?
No, I don't think it necessarily does. I think it is mostly a volume question. But remember, the innovation of design is being handled by Beyond Meat. So Beyond Meat is the one that has the specifications, right, on how to make the product. So if someone else can handle the actual purchasing of these large pieces of equipment that's required for executing that extrusion process, they've already done all of their manufacturing to date, right? So this is not something that they're currently relying on. But they're thinking about doing this for jerky, and it might apply to other products as well if they do get to significant scale. But remember, the design of the product itself, the innovation and the engineering of the meat is done by them. Okay. So they own the intellectual property and the patents to actually make the product itself.
Okay. So what, before we turn to Tesla, are there any other thoughts you have? I guess we should talk about, well, is there anything else you want to say about Beyond before we turn to land-based meat?
I just wanted to add also why I think this is an opportunity for Beyond Meat when it comes to McDonald's is that a lot of people might not agree with me, but I think actually McDonald's really need Beyond Meat, because if you take a look at their revenue the last 10 years, they were up around $28 billion in revenue about 10 years ago. And actually before the pandemic, they were down to about 17 and 18 billion. People aren't buying their products as much anymore. It's not as popular anymore to go buy meat, not in that way, maybe more high end then. And now they're up to, again, after COVID settled down, they're up to around 22 billion, but still far away from where they used to be. So they need to find new venues, right? They need to find new ways of making money. And McDonald's isn't doing this because they care about the animals, obviously. If we're not talking about econ, right? But they're in it for the money, like all big business.
Sure.
So that's how I see it.
Okay, so let me turn to, before we go to Tesla, let's talk about lab-based meat. So my understanding, I think I mentioned this before, but plant-based meat is, in the case of Beyond, they take pea proteins. I think with Impossible, they take soy proteins. They take peas grown on a farm, and they extract the proteins from the peas, and they go through this process to convert the cellular structure of the peas to mimic the cellular structure of meat. And I genuinely think it works. Impossible does the same thing with soy. They extract the proteins and the fats, I guess, from soybeans, and they change the molecular structure to make it mimic meat. And I think they do a really good job of it. Cell-based meat is they take meat from an animal and they clone the cells. And they somehow, now I have not seen, I think Memphis Meats was one of the names. I think they changed the name of their company, and Kimball Musk had invested in Memphis Meats. But have any of these companies reached any scale at all?
No, so that's the issue with lab-based meat, is that it's still years away from scaling, because we haven't seen product in significant quantities from them. I believe Singapore is the first jurisdiction to legalize cell-based, lab-based meat. So there are startups that are in Singapore right now that's selling it, but it's not in the volumes that Impossible or Beyond Meat are at right now.
But the company that's actually focusing on it in Singapore it's Eat Just, right? The ones that actually created the vegan egg product called Just Eggs, if you've heard about them. And their CEO is someone also who kind of reminds me of Ethan Brown, but also somewhat like Elon Musk, actually, because he has a really strong vision. He's a strong character. He's really driven. And Eat Just, they have a second company, basically, which is their culture meat company, which is called Good Meats. And that's the company that's actually now working with Singapore to create it. And it's actually getting way cheaper than it's been. It's still super expensive. And I agree. I think at least the very least another 10 years before we can see scalability there. But it's not that complicated anymore when the way they actually harvest the cells. Now, basically, if you had to get a chicken product, you just need to take a feather, and then you're good to go, basically.
So why aren't they able to scale? What's holding them up?
I think there is a limit to their scalability. Maybe it's just a limitation of technology right now. Like batteries were not scalable in 2010. There's just not enough infrastructure. I don't know the specifics of the science behind it. But this is something that's been under, they've been working on this for many years.
Yeah. And
we still haven't seen them come out in significant numbers. So I back up and just ask a big picture, like first principles question is, what's the advantage, right? What is the advantage of lab-based meat? If you can have plant-based meat that mimics the taste and texture of real meat, right? Animal-based meat, and is sold at a similar price point as animal meat, and has 99% less greenhouse gas emissions, 50% less energy, 90% less land, no cancer risks, nothing associated with heart disease, and no other adverse effects, then what's the point? What is the achievement of lab-based meat?
But I can answer that you don't need the land. You don't need to grow plants in order to supply. You're just taking existing meat cells, and I assume they feed them something like glucose, or I don't know what they feed the lab-based cells to get them to grow and form into that shape. It should be less, more efficient than plant-based meat because you don't need the farms.
Yeah, when it comes to sustainability, for sure, it's still going to be really good, right? It's definitely preferable. And when it comes to the animals, for sure, same thing there, right? You're going to save billions and billions of lives.
But you're going to have lives that aren't born in the first place. So,
well, that's a good thing, I guess, because you don't have to raise them. But another thing that always comes to mind when you're comparing like plant-based meats and culture meat, for me, is that it seems to be something that isn't part of the discourse, and it's the health aspect. Because yes, you won't be using antibiotics, so for sure that's going to be a healthier meat. But my understanding, it's still meat, right? So there will still be cancer risk. There will definitely be cholesterol issues. So, and that's what you don't get in this
Well,
when it comes
no,
to.
you don't just avoid antibiotics. You avoid antibiotics. You avoid feces. You avoid urine.
Yeah, true.
You avoid bugs. There's
True.
all kinds of things that get into the animal-based agricultural process that are avoided with lab-based meat.
Yeah.
I'm not fully convinced, and you're probably right. I'm not fully convinced that. Well, first of all, I don't think meat is that unhealthy, just in general. I'm a meat eater, and I want to be clear about this actually to the audience. Beyond Meat and Impossible Foods are not intended for vegans. They're not intended for vegetarians. They're intended for meat eaters.
Yeah.
My friends who are vegan, they don't particularly care about Beyond Burger because they don't eat burgers because they've been vegan for so long that burger's off their menu.
Yeah.
Right? Breakfast sausage is off their menu. It's just not how they eat.
Mhm.
This is intended for meat eaters, which is why it's such a big market.
Yeah.
And it's not intended to and the lab-based meat. So if you're not aiming for people who are vegan out of principle or whatever, then and like I eat bacon, which is probably one of the most unhealthy meats. If there's such a thing as a healthy meat, and you believe in the meat is unhealthy hypothesis, then bacon's probably the worst. I eat it because I like meat, and if you can deliver me a meat product that's as good, but I'm not. Can you explain to me why you believe that the plant-based meats have a lower risk of causing cancer than the cell-based meat?
Well, we just don't know yet, right? Since lab-based meat is such a new thing. It's a completely new innovation.
But I mean,
We
so is
don't really-
plant-based meat. I mean, if you're
But
changing the molecular structure of the cells to mimic the cellular structure of meat, then aren't you still getting some of the potential risks of meat? And personally, like I don't even buy the cholesterol hypothesis. So I'm not convinced that cholesterol. I think there's some evidence that cholesterol is a problem. I think cholesterol is actually a proxy for other problems in the body, and I could be wrong. I'm not a medical expert, or I know I've been told to take statins for my cholesterol level, and I've said no for over 20 years. I don't find the cholesterol case very convincing. But what's the theory about why plant-based meat is healthier than animal-based meat outside of the antibiotics, feces, urine, contamination issue?
Well, I would say that it is the cholesterol thing that is one of the best cases, and I think it's heavily studied actually in thousands of peer-reviewed papers out there. But I mean, we should probably do a separate video on just that.
Okay.
And as the thing about meat, it's not meat itself that actually, when you're eating it, that you get cancer from eating meat, right? It's what happens when it's in the stomach, right? And what it creates an atmosphere for cancer cells to actually start multiplying. And that's what when we go into the discussion about what's oxidating and what's antioxidating, right? And usually plant-based food is antioxidating and meat products usually oxidating, kind of like a car that's rusting, right? So when it goes through an oxidation process, you're kind of killing the car, right, to some extent. And that's basically the whole idea of what's happening with your body if you eat way too much meat, right? And so that's the issue. But like you said, when it comes to plant-based meat that is heavily processed, there's been some small studies, and what we've seen so far, it doesn't seem to be an issue actually when it comes to that. There's other issues, is too much salt, and that obviously has other health implications.
I'm pretty sure my bacon has a lot of salt in it.
Yeah, but like I'm not sure if Mayur said it today, but Beyond Meat right now, I think with Stanford are doing a 5-year study right now, a much larger study than before. And right now it's looking good. But we still don't know enough. And it's probably, we're going to have a lot of more studies in the future for sure.
Yeah, that 5-year study is essentially a it's at the level of a clinical trial across a much larger, population of people that studies the effect of plant-based meat versus red meat. Yeah. So we'll see what those results are due out in 2024, but they ran a smaller study and found that, there's a control group and a group that ate Beyond Meat products twice a day. And they found that the group that ate plant-based meats had reduced TMAO, which is basically, it's linked to cardiovascular disease. It's a risk factor for heart disease.
Okay.
So there's a direct correlation between that. So we'll see if that applies to lab-based meat too. I don't think I've seen any studies that look at that.
Right, they just don't have the volume to be studied yet.
No, exactly. But to keep it real, that study was sponsored by Beyond Meat. But I mean, that's the whole issue with research today, right? It's usually sponsored from big company. But yeah.
All right. So anything else you want to talk about before we talk about Tesla?
I think, well, just as of right now, I'm still holding my Beyond Meat shares, but I still think that because of these issues that they're going through, I think the stock will go lower.
Okay.
So that's just my expectation right now.
Okay, no, we're not professional investment advisors. We're not giving professional investment advice. I do hold a small stake in Beyond Meat. I did lose, the value of my Beyond Meat investment did fall. My stake is very small, and I'm not really worried about it. I think that, just to be clear, the market potential for plant-based meat, for Beyond Meat, Impossible Foods, is gargantuan. If they hit it, if they can get to price parity with ground beef, and they can get consumers to say, hey, that looks like ground beef, I want ground beef, it costs same as ground beef or less, and the packaging, whatever, they're persuaded that this is a better deal, and they start buying it and they keep buying it, then the market potential is 100x or more.
It's basically it's basically the same time possibility as cars, because it's basically around $1.4 trillion.
Right. So the potential for the stock to 10x, 100x or more is really there if they can hit it. It's a risky play because they may run out of cash. Who knows what's going to happen? They say they're not going to run out of cash. There are issues, but I'm personally excited about it, and I'm willing to roll some dice on that. All right. So let me turn to Tesla. So I've been doing this. I started this series of asking other people how to value Tesla stock. And people who follow my channel know I have a battery revenue model. I have a robo-taxi model. I have a bot model now. I call it napkin math. There's a lot of different approaches. I'm going to start with Mayur because we've talked about it before, and I'll ask Jessie next. Mayur, can you, in a sense, give us an idea? How do you value Tesla stock? What methodology do you use to figure out what do you think Tesla stock is worth, either short-term, long-term, however you look at it?
Yeah. I've always valued Tesla without FSD. So let me just start with that. I think FSD is a breakthrough technology, but I'm not going to value that just yet. I want to value Tesla on its auto opportunity only. So if you believe in their rate of growth in terms of how much CapEx that they're deploying. So I've always talked about this concept called ROIC, right? Return on invested capital. That's kind of how I think about all investments. Companies that earn high returns on their capital tend to outperform the market and do really well as far as long-term investments are concerned. And Tesla is now in the leagues of big cap tech. They've already surpassed NVIDIA. They are on the way to surpassing Taiwan Semi, which is widely known as one of the pristine efficient examples of efficiency in manufacturing. They're essentially on their way to lasting Apple, right? Apple right now is the company among big tech that has the best efficiency out there. And so they earn about 44%. So for every dollar of capital that they invest, they earn 44 cents of cash flow, which is by far the best
per year.
Per year.
So over 10 years, they earn $4.40 on a dollar in invested capital. So they're making a lot of money. Exactly.
So it's extremely profitable. Every dollar that they invest in factories and innovation and other equipment out there, they're extracting an enormous amount of profit, or cash flow, I should say. I think Tesla is going to take that out because right now they're at roughly a 32% ROIC right now, and the rate of change is significant. So, and the reason for this is a couple of things. There's not just top line growth, but ROIC increases as you increase your manufacturing efficiency. So how do you increase manufacturing efficiency? Better fixed cost absorption, meaning every factory is producing more cars. B, the same number of employees are producing more cars. So you get labor efficiency out of that. How do we achieve that? Well, Tesla's factories are iteratively getting better and better, right? They actually had a slide on one of their investor decks that showed the layout of the Fremont factory, right? It was like literally like, a
A mess.
a tunnel, like a mice tunnel, right?
It's a mess. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a total mess. There's all these little arrows where you have to go left and right.
It's not
before
necessarily a mess compared to other automakers. It's a mess compared to the next generation factories.
Right, exactly. So that's why we're used to seeing 25% gross margins on $100,000 cars, right, out of Fremont. And now we're seeing better gross margins on cars that are half the price, right, for Model 3 and Model Y. Part of that is due to vehicle engineering innovation, and part of it is also due to factory optimization. So we can see, as opposed to Fremont, which is a complete mess, we see Shanghai is much, much smoother. Like the entire process, is basically in a straight line. So once the raw materials enter, it goes through all of the manufacturing processes in a straight line, and then out the door is the finished product, right?
Yeah, and like they have garage doors all along the building so that the suppliers bring the materials to the correct door so that the materials are closer to where they need to be on the assembly line.
Exactly.
A lot
right.
of efficiencies in Shanghai and Berlin and Texas as well.
Exactly, right. So there's that, right? Factory optimization. And so we see that even further with Berlin and Austin, right? So these factories themselves are getting iteratively better and better. And then the other part of it is vehicle innovation, right? So we've all heard about IDRA, which is the Italian company that makes these gigantic die-cast machines, right? So this is the first time in auto history that a company is about to be making a car at volume using a single piece die-cast for the frame of the vehicle, the body in white, which is absolutely it's just incredible. No one's been able to do it, right? Toyota has talked about this for some time. They have done it. And remember, Toyota, within the auto industry, analysts that follow the auto industry, they all have basically agreed for years, for decades, that Toyota is the leader of vehicle manufacturing efficiency. There's an entire thing called TPS, right? The Toyota Production System, that's literally studied by like business, like MBA programs, things like that, for many years now, decades. Soon it's going to be Tesla, but till now Toyota's been that, and even they haven't figured this out yet. So Tesla is the first company to be able to do this at scale. So this is all basically contributing to ROIC, right? So for every dollar of
just
capital,
one more thing. They're getting their cost of building factories down on a per car produced basis. That the cost of building Giga Texas is surprisingly low considering the scale of the factory.
Yeah.
And the volume of vehicles it produces. So if you can build your factory for less and make more cars from it, then your return on invested capital, that the factory represents invested capital.
Right.
If you get a higher volume of output from a lower cost factory, then your invested capital smaller, your return is higher, and you end up getting a much higher return on invested capital. Am I getting that right?
Exactly, right. Exactly. So there's less inputs required to achieve even higher outputs, right? So it's absolutely incredible. So they've been doing this for some time now with Shanghai, but really accelerating with Berlin and Texas. The other part of it too is the structural battery pack, right? That allows for so much more in terms of auto manufacturing efficiency, because now you have a battery pack that's basically built as a part of the body in white of the car. So again, these are all things that are just it's groundbreaking in terms of what they're doing. So I think the rate of change in ROIC is going to continue for some time. They're at 32% right now. So for every dollar of capital that Tesla is investing, they're earning 32 cents of cash flow, which is again among the top tier of big tech.
Did you see the Sandy Monroe video where he broke down some of how they're manufacturing at Giga Texas and why it's efficient? That they basically make batteries on like the upper floor, then they put them in a battery pack on the next floor, then they, I don't know, age the battery pack or something on the next floor, and then they just drop it down into the assembly line between the front and rear castings, and they just put it together in one shot, and that makes the manufacturing process that much more efficient.
Yeah.
That was stunning when I saw Sandy explain that.
Right. Yeah. So there's fewer, right. So there's labor efficiency, there's capital efficiency, both together. And it's getting iteratively better each and every time. And by the way, this is all happening despite FSD take rates remaining low. So according to Troy Tesla, right, he thinks the current FSD take rate is under 10% right now, which is, that to me is extraordinary, because that means that Tesla is already in the top tier in terms of manufacturing efficiency, capital efficiency, without even having FSD a significant contributor to revenue and profit.
Okay. And full disclosure, I'm a Tesla shareholder. I'm almost all in on Tesla.
What, you own Tesla shares?
I own Tesla stock. I own a Tesla Model 3. I have FSD beta on my car. I have a Plaid X on order that's coming potentially in July.
You're a fanboy. You're a fanboy.
I am an Elon Musk fanboy. I'm more of a SpaceX fan than a Tesla fan, believe it or not. But I'm Boring Company. I'm big on Boring. I'm like all his projects. Boring Company, Neuralink, they're all spectacular. Jesse, what? Hang on a second, Mayur. I just want to finish. So when you take your return on invested capital approach and you look at Tesla, where do you see the company going in the short term, medium term, long term? Where do you look, and where do you see the value of the company going?
Yeah, so I think that 100 PE is justified. 100 to 120 PE is justified given the growth rate and the ROIC that this company has. So my target for this year is $14 of EPS. So I see that the stock should be at some point by the end of the year, or a year from now, let's just say, at between 1,400 to 1,600 a share.
Okay,
that's my target. Yeah.
Okay, so Jesse, how do you look at Tesla? What methodology do you use to look at it, and where do you see the value going in the next, whatever future you want to put it at?
Yeah, I'm similar to you guys. I'm not that. I'm very heavily invested in them as well, but I don't have all that kind of the knowledge when it comes to all the numbers yet. I'm still in the learning process here because it's that complicated in my eyes. But I'm more of a bigger picture guy, and when it comes to basically what they're doing, they're solving a problem, right? Like one of the biggest problems on the planet when it comes to sustainability, just like Beyond Meat, but they're actually being very successful. And the way they're starting to ramp up, there's nothing like it when it comes to their factories. And when everything is really, all the chess pieces are placed out there, they're just gonna, fly away from everything. So basically escape velocity. And then when they're doing that, the margins, like we're already talking about the ROIC, right? But the ordinary gross margins there is just going to fly off the roof as well. And when it comes to other companies, other car companies that are talking about making more and more EVs and talking about their battery technology, I mean, when they're talking about what kind of technology they're going to have in 5 years from now, that's basically what Tesla has now. So in 5 years from now,
that's what Tesla had 3 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And basically, that's why I like this whole idea that what's the next Tesla? Well, it's Tesla, right? Because they're improving themselves all the time. So that's basically, and when it comes to FSD and the whole robotaxi thing, I actually count that in because I do see it as a huge possibility and as something that's going to happen. And the whole idea that no one is going to need cars. You're not going to have to buy a car. You'll have some kind of subscription. You'll say every morning, come and pick me up at 7 and then get me home around 5. I see that as one of the biggest realities out there. And that's just how I'm a historian as well. That's just how I view the world and where we're going, right? And then when it comes to, I know it's far out there right now, but when it comes to Tesla bots, I mean, I invested before I knew about the Tesla bot, and now I'm just sad I don't have more money, especially when it comes to the prices we're at right now. Sometimes I'm actually thinking of selling off all my other shares just to put it into Tesla, to be honest. But no, I think it's still important to diversify to some extent. But when it comes to the Tesla bot, that seems to be something there's no end to that. Because I keep getting in my mind, I don't know if you guys have seen with Will Smith an old movie from 2004 called I, Robot. Yeah. That's basically where I see Tesla. Hopefully not that devious and evil, but the whole idea by being the biggest company in the world, having a robot in every home, basically helping out the elderly, helping out with whatever groceries. I just there's no the ends. There's I don't know the possibilities are endless.
Yep.
So for me, that I'm a bigger picture guy. I'm working to getting closer to understanding the numbers and the small details, and Mayur is here to help me with that. But and your channel is one of them as well. But otherwise, yeah.
Well, let me just hit you with, like, I have all these models that my viewers have seen, but one thing that just strikes me is if you look at 2021, Tesla delivered nearly 1 million cars with really 1.5 factories. They had the one factory in Fremont, and they had the factory in Shanghai that was still ramping and is still ramping. And for 2023, if you skip ahead from this year to next year, for 2023, Tesla will have 5 factories. And the 3 new factories, well, the half factory becoming a full factory is more efficient than the first factory. And the 3 new factories, because there's Giga Berlin, there's Giga Texas, and now we've learned of an additional factory being built in Shanghai, or expansion of the Shanghai factory.
Right.
The newer factories will inherently be more efficient than the second factory.
Yeah.
So you're going from 1.5 to 5, and the 5 really produces like 7.
Right.
So you're almost 5xing the productivity of the company with higher margins, with more profitability along the way. So just looking at 2023 versus 2021, you're like, and I think the revenue growth for Q1 versus Q1 last year was maybe 87%, but the profit growth was like 300%.
Yeah. So that's the operating leverage, right? That's basically, essentially it's all operating leverage.
Right. And
So
then as the
if
return on
revenue
investment,
growth rate is going to continue at 50%, right? According to Elon's own guidance.
yeah.
That means that earnings will continue to grow at something much more than 50%. That's just by laws of finance.
Right. And so when you say you think it should have a PE of 100, 120, I look at it and say, to take another step forward, all right, you're saying $14 this year. I was thinking more, but with the slowdown in Shanghai, maybe $14 is about right. But when I look at 2023, I think it has to be more than $30 a share. If you give it, the growth will still be there, because 2024 they're going to be building the quote robo-taxi factory, or they're going to start ramping the robo-taxi factory. We haven't even talked about Tesla Energy and how they've got a Megapack factory that's going to start producing and delivering soon, and that's going to 10x their energy revenue. They're going to be at the end of 2023. They're going to have delivered, I don't know, 3-4 million cars at much higher profitability, $30 per share profitability. And if you do 100 price earning ratio, then you're at 3,000.
Yeah.
Even if you do an 80 price earnings ratio, you're still at 2,400 a share. So I kind of have
all these growth assumptions again are contingent upon whether they can get this 4680 cell right.
No, I don't agree with that. Some of the growth is dependent on 4680. But a lot of their production is they're shifting more and more to lithium iron phosphate, which doesn't have the same challenges. And everything I'm hearing, my 4680 question was asked during the Q1 investor call. There were 2 4680 questions asked, and they insisted that 4680 production was on pace for where it needs to be. But I think 4680 is going to be maybe a quarter of the batteries in the cars. That they're going to massively increase lithium iron phosphate purchases, and that's going to go into
for storage and for the lower end cars.
For lower end cars, yeah, but the lower end cars are where the volume is.
Right. True.
I do think there's this question: if they really are able to ramp 4680 cell production to where they said they're going to go, then that'll be a lot of cars.
Mm-hmm.
They will be able to make a lot of cars, probably at a very valuable sale price and a high margin when they get there. But it's I kind of wonder. Let me just ask you this, Mayur. We talked about beyond outsourcing manufacturing. The thing about battery manufacturing is it tends to traditionally be a low margin, not low growth, I guess, but a relatively low margin business. And I know Panasonic is working on a 4680 cell factory in Wakayama. There's a rumor, Wakayama, Japan, outside Osaka. There's a rumor that Panasonic is going to locate another battery factory, maybe in Oklahoma, making 4680 cells. You almost wondered, does it make sense for Tesla to let everybody else make the batteries and Tesla to focus on where they generate more revenue and profit? Or is it they can't be sure they have the battery supply unless they make them themselves? What's the theory about why they don't outsource that more?
Well, because so remember they talked about this on Battery Day. There's one specific slide that basically sums up everything. They think that their process of cell design, the cell factory
The dry
itself,
battery electrode detail and
exactly the cathode material. If
yeah.
you sum it all up, then they can get a investment per gigawatt hour reduction of 69. I think it was like, yeah, it was like around 69%.
And that gets you the ROIC you're talking about.
That gets you the ROIC, exactly.
Right. If you're reducing the investment cost of building the battery factory, then you produce out the batteries, then you've got a much higher return on invested capital than traditional battery factories. So do we
So this
know?
is Tesla doing Panasonic's job for them.
Do we know that whether Panasonic or LG Chem are working on dry battery electrode? Is Tesla sharing that technology with them, or are they just not interested?
I think that, well, the 4680 cell is supposed to be made by Tesla's partners as well as them.
But I don't think the partners have to make it with dry battery. For those who don't know, dry battery electrode is a process of making the cathode part of the battery that uses a lot less space and is a lot more efficient in a lot of ways. And Tesla, as far as I know, is the only one doing the dry battery electrode method of making battery cells. My impression is Panasonic and LG Chem are not using dry battery electrode to make that part of the battery. So the amount of area they need to produce cells is much larger, and their cost structure will be higher for producing 4680s. Yeah. That doesn't mean it'll be more expensive than other batteries. It just means it's more expensive than Tesla 4680s.
Right, exactly.
I just wanted to add, I keep thinking about, I'm guessing you guys know who Ray Dalio is.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and one of his latest books that I'm reading right now, the Changing World Order, he keeps talking also about history, and that's why he appeals to me. But that all great events, when they have happened, no one could really see it, right? No one was prepared for it, and that's why it happened. And that's the kind of thing I watch. But I look at Tesla and Elon Musk, right? That this thing, I think it's you, Warren. Did you say that by 2026 or 2027, you can see them already at 10 million cars?
No, I can see them at 20 million in 2026.
Okay.
I think that this relates to what Mayur talks about a little bit. If they're able to get the cost of building factories low enough, and they have an $18 billion cash pile that's growing, I don't think they can pay off any more debt. The cash pile hasn't been growing that much because they've been paying off debt with it. Well, they ran out of debt to pay off.
Yeah.
Right? They're going to have massive cash flow the next few years. So and then the regulatory credits generate enough revenue for them to build a factory a year. So when they build the next generation factory, which is going to make that next generation vehicle, the robotaxi vehicle, they could build 5 of them at one time, and those factories might produce more vehicles than an existing factory, like by a significant number. Yeah. So I think that we may see them get to 20 million vehicles a year by 2027, let's say. I think 2023, they could be, these 5 factories going full bore, they could very well hit 4 or even 5 million vehicles. In 2024, I think they could hit 5 million to 6 million vehicles. Now, I tend to be optimistic with my numbers. Yeah. I tend to be wrong with my optimism. I think a lot of my being wrong has been a result of supply chain issues and other things that are holding Tesla back from the growth that would have been natural, because we're living in a simulation, and the great simulators saw that Elon was playing the game too well, so they had to increase the level of difficulty of the simulation. That's my whole theory there. But
I'm still a skeptic of, so I'm still like, full disclosure, I'm a skeptic of the 20 million goal.
Why?
It's not that they can't make them. It's that it would be it would just be unprecedented.
But
for a single car manufacturer to own.
That was my point before with Ray Dalio in history, right? That people normally they'll go back historically and look at the way other car companies would have done it, right? And no one has done it before, so why should they do it? But every time something when there's a paradigm shift, right? There'll always be someone that'll create something that no one was prepared for, and it'll change humanity in one way or another.
Well, no flip phone maker had Apple's market share.
Exactly.
Right? But let me ask you this, Mayur, do you drive a car?
I do.
What do you drive?
I drive a Prius.
Okay. Have you driven a Tesla?
Yeah.
Okay. Jesse, what do you drive?
Right now, a Kia Niro.
Okay, so that's an EV. Okay.
Yeah, but the only reason why I haven't gotten Tesla is because I want to keep that money in Tesla, and when I feel like it's 10x then I might get a Tesla.
You don't want to sell stock to buy the car, right?
Exactly.
So I drive a Model 3 and I'm waiting on a Model X Plaid, and I'm not selling any stock to buy them. Go into debt to buy the Model X Plaid. I own the Model 3 out. I bought the Model 3 with Bitcoin, which turns out to have been a very good decision with given what's happened with Bitcoin, the value of Bitcoin, and the value of my car. That wasn't conscious, but I can just tell you, I can't imagine buying another car, buying another brand at this point. I mean, the supercharger network, the software, FSD beta is amazing. I probably won't have FSD beta on my Model X. The quietness that the vehicle runs, the efficiency that the vehicle runs with.
Yeah.
There's so many advantages to a Tesla. It's like buying a flip phone in an age of iPhones. It's like, you know, if your next car that you buy isn't a Tesla, it's like you're buying a flip phone.
Yeah.
And so, you know, one of the criticisms is, well, they can't possibly sell that many with only 4 models. Well, first of all, by the time they get to closer to 20 million, there's going to be Cybertruck, Robotaxi. I suspect there's going to be a van format.
So here's why I'm skeptical of this is because that if you want to get to 20 million cars, you have to meet people at a price point that they can afford, right?
Right.
The companies that sell in volumes like this are the Toyota Corolla and the Honda Civic. The Model 3 is already beating them right now. But it would be very difficult to see a scenario where Tesla sells 20 million units at an average selling price of $45,000.
Right. So, but
I don't think that's going to happen. I think
what's their cost?
Come down to the mass market price, or at least factor in the fact that, okay, well, electric cars save you money, so people might be willing to pay $35,000 for a car to get to the $25,000 price parity that, you know, the Civic is at right now.
Right, but I mean, there's 2 different ways I get there. One is, first of all, what's the manufacturing cost of a Model Y? When they're at scale, when they're making 4680 at scale, or when they're using lithium iron phosphate at scale, as the cost of batteries comes down. And if you say, well, there's inflation and supply chain stuff, well, that's going to raise the price of the Corolla and the Civic as well. But the reality is that Tesla could sell the Model Y for $35,000 today and make a profit. So that's one thing, and they're gonna make their manufacturing better, and they're going to be able to, in other words, they won't make as much profit, but they could conceivably sell it at $35,000 and still make a profit on the car. And I think they might be able to sell it at $30,000 and make a profit on the car. I think their margins are that crazy.
Yeah.
So, and I think that the thing that I think people miss when they say, well, people want different kinds of cars, is like, Apple didn't make that many versions of the iPhone, and the Model Y is sort of the perfect storm. It's like, if you were thinking of buying a sedan, well, the Model Y is close enough. If you were thinking about buying a larger SUV, well, the Model Y fits a lot of needs for a lot of people. That's one side of it. And then the other side of it is, forget about selling 20 million vehicles. What if they get the Robotaxi network up and running and they just dump all the vehicles they produce into the Robotaxi network, so they don't have to find customers? Because when you just want to ride, you don't care whether you ride in a Corolla or a Passat or an Accord. You just want to, I mean, to some people care about being in the back of a luxury car, right? But the vast majority of people who are getting Uber rides, they just want to get from point A to point B, and as long as the car gets them there, they don't really that picky about what they ride.
But is 20 million units a year is that? Does the world need 20 million robotaxis?
The world needs 500 million robotaxis. The world needs hundreds of millions of robotaxis. That's the demand. When you get the cost of a ride down below the cost of owning a car, then the vast majority of people are going to choose not to own a car. They're going to choose to ride in a robotaxi. It's a lot of advantages to robotaxi. So if now your position is you're not going to value FSD, you're not going to value robotaxi, I would turn that on you a little bit and say, well, wait a minute. You recognize there's some probability that they will be able to deliver this by, say, 2026. Right? You could pick a year and say, what's the probability they deliver this? And what I would say is, if you say by not valuing it, you're saying there's zero probability of them delivering it. If you acknowledge there's, let's say, a 10% chance they deliver a working robotaxi network by 2026, then you have to say, all right, what's the value of robotaxi network? And let me add 10% of that to my valuation of Tesla.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, that's a big number.
Right. So I don't say that it's impossible. What I say is I want to value the business of, based on what they're doing today.
Yep.
And I think that the stock is undervalued just from the auto business alone.
Yep.
So if you add in, the value of robo-taxis, that's a call option that you're getting for free, essentially.
Okay.
And then whatever else they do with the Tesla bot or on whatever they do on the energy. In fact, I'm writing off the entire energy side too, because remember, energy is fascinating, but so far they haven't been able to make money on it. It's actually a loss leader right now for Tesla,
right?
Even at the gross profit line. So that's been kind of frustrating to see, but that's why I'm basically just valuing the car business alone.
I think the Megapack factory is going to turn that around. I think the problem with energy is just they don't have the volume, they don't have the scale to be able to make profits. They haven't optimized their manufacturing, but they have a new factory for Megapack, and they're going to optimize manufacturing for that product.
Yeah, the cost curve decline, especially with LFP, should make battery storage, profitable, very profitable.
Yeah.
Can I ask
Sure.
the both of you guys when it comes then to their energy business, considering what's going on in the world now in Russia and Ukraine and the whole energy sector here in Europe, anyways, being catastrophe because of it, having to find other solutions. Don't you think this could be some kind of really good start for the energy business in Tesla, that this is the right time to start taking a look at that?
I'll answer that. Yes, the Tesla's problem has never been demand. Despite the Tesla Q haters who always say there's no demand, there's no demand, there's no demand, there isn't enough demand for this, blah blah blah. They've always managed to find demand easily. Their problem is being able to produce in volume. And Tesla Energy, it's not that they're not producing Tesla Energy products because they don't think there's demand for them. There's actually more demand than they can handle. They just literally cannot manufacture the products that they need. The chip shortage. Do you put the chip in a car or do you put it in a power wall? You put the chip in a car, or do you put it in a Megapack? And it turns out that the profit side of vehicles is higher than the profit side of energy. Now, I actually think when they get Megapack to scale, the margins on Megapack are going to be more than 50%. When they get it to scale, which in a year or two, because the main cost piece of a Megapack is the battery cell. So if you figure 3 megawatt hours of lithium iron phosphate cells, it's say $50 a kilowatt hour, you end up with about $150,000 in cost for the main component of the Megapack. And you sell it for more than $1 million. So even if the rest of the Megapack costs another $150,000 and you have $300,000 total cost, if you sell it for more than $1 million, you got 70% margin, gross margin, right? So throw in some other costs, it's not hard to stay above 50% margin if you do it right. Mm-hmm. So there's delivery costs and there's installation costs and all that. I don't know who pays for that. If Tesla's paying for the installation cost, and whatever. But I still think you end up over 50% margin on Megapack. And as Powerwall is going to shift, we're ultimately going to see a lithium iron phosphate version of Powerwall. That's going to lower the cost of Powerwall. Really, they're waiting for CATL, which is their main supplier for lithium iron phosphate batteries. They're waiting for CATL to scale production of lithium iron phosphate cells, which CATL has committed to doing, and I think they are doing.
Yeah.
And the minerals that are needed for nickel-based cells are in short supply, but the minerals needed for lithium iron phosphate cells are widespread. So that shouldn't be a challenge. So sorry, I'm rambling. Anything else that you wanted to say, Mayur, in response to that question?
No, the last thing is that the competition is nowhere close. So it's funny because right now Tesla's net margins are better than Ford and GM's gross margins.
Yeah, no, I say the competition is comical. That people say the competition is coming. There's no competition coming. And my best example on competition is December 21, 2015, SpaceX landed their first orbital rocket booster. Right? And they've now done over 100 launch captures. They've done 100 reusable rocket boosters so far. Maybe there are 110 or more now. And no one else has even tried. I mean, Rocket Lab has kind of tried with a smaller rocket that they caught by a helicopter. They didn't land it propulsively. And that was 6 years ago. That was 6.5 years ago.
Yeah.
So whatever Tesla's doing, my opinion, the competition is roughly 6+ years behind. I mean, I still don't think there's arguably a case that no one has made an EV better than the 2012 Model S. I don't think that's true anymore. I think some of the EVs that are out there are better than the 2012 Model S, but nobody's made a cost competitive EV that competes with the 2018 Model 3.
Right.
Right. And that was 4 years ago. And I don't see anybody close to the 2018 Model 3. I mean, close, sort of, but on a profitability, cost, price, everything else, I don't think anybody's there yet. And that nobody has the software. The software from 2018 was better. The supercharging network is better in 2018. So really, I think everybody's 6 years behind. And then FSD beta, FSD, when they deliver that, which I think next year you're going to see it in widespread use, if not by the end of this year. Nobody else is generating the data. You need, if you're going to deliver self-driving cars, you need to be able to learn from all the data, and Tesla's the only one generating that volume of data. Nobody else is. You have to install the cameras in the cars.
Yeah.
Every car you sell has to have the cameras. Every car has to have the chips. Every car has to be uploading data every day. Nobody else has started doing that yet. Tesla's been doing that since 2016 or 17.
Right.
So again, they're more than 6 years behind.
Yeah.
Gary Black seems to think that the minute Tesla delivers full self-driving, some other companies are going to wave a magic wand and they're going to have self-driving too. It's like, where are they going to get self-driving from?
I think they're taking very different approaches. Like Tesla is the only one that's working on a general solution. Actually, I think Mobileye is also kind of in this category as well, which is a vision-based approach of, full self-driving.
Yeah. But they don't. I don't think Mobileye. I don't think Mobileye has the same scale or the same data generation.
Exactly. Yeah, they don't. But these other autonomous driving companies, I think what they're going to do is they're going to basically have a solution that's designed for specific, tasks. Like Zoox, for example, will. These other companies will basically have fit for purpose applications of autonomous driving. So
yeah, but that's
an HD mapped route where it's just like a shuttle bus that goes from point A to point B, like taking people to the airport and back.
Yeah, but you're not ready. You're not ready for edge cases. Edge cases happen no matter how carefully you try to constrain the scenario. Edge cases happen, and a pedestrian walks out when you don't expect it. And are you ready for it? And a UFO comes down from the sky and lands on the road.
Yeah.
Elon's reference, I don't think that they get it. I don't think they're close. All right, anyway, but I could go on about this stuff for hours longer, and we've gone an hour and a half, I think, so far. So is there anything else that you guys want to talk about before we wrap up?
I think that's a good sum up.
Okay, so Jesse, you have a channel, Plant Stock. I'll put a link to that in the description below.
It's actually both mine and Mayur's now. So
okay.
we
That's
do
your
all
joint
videos
channel.
there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll put a link. So please check their channels out. This is Latin for critical thinking. Latin for critical thinking.
Nice.
The Tesla is the next t-shirt. Tesla is the next Tesla t-shirt is the most popular. So please check it out. Check out my other videos. Support this my channel on the Locals platform. Check out the Plant Stock channel and support these guys as well. And thank you so much for watching.